On this episode of Soldier Tech Battlefield, we're going to be comparing the new Nexus 7 versus the iPad mini to see which one is going to come out on top in this battle of these small tablets. So let's go and start the show. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Soldiers Tech Battlefield. I'm your host Mark Watson, or Soldier Knows Best, whatever you want to call me. And today we're going to be comparing the Nexus 7 versus the iPad mini. Now this is the new Nexus 7 that just came out about a month ago, and we're going to be comparing it against the iPad mini to see which one is going to be the best right now and gets you the best bang for your buck. So the categories today are going to be hardware, software, and the price point. So it's going to start this battle off with the hardware category. Now, when I originally compared the first generation Nexus 7 versus the first generation iPad mini, the iPad mini, when it comes to the hardware, as far as how it looks and feel, definitely had the Nexus 7 beat. But this Nexus 7 version 2 definitely has a more premium feel than the previous version of it. Now, it still doesn't feel as premium as the iPad mini does. I do prefer the Nexus 7's design over the iPad minis when it comes to holding it and actually using it, because it has a soft touch back, and also too, it's not as wide as the iPad mini, so it's easier to hold in one hand. When it comes to tablets of this size, I would take feel over look any day of the week. Now when it comes to the internal specs, the Nexus 7 is rocking a 1.4 gigahertz quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM, and the iPad mini is rocking the dual-core A5 processor with 512 megabytes of RAM. And I would tell you, just performance-wise, just using these two tablets side by side, I did feel that the Nexus 7 was speedier and more responsive than the iPad mini. And the iPad mini has a 7.9-inch display that has a resolution of 1024 by 768, so this is going to be bigger than the new Nexus 7 display, but it's definitely not the same quality, because the new Nexus 7 has a 1920 by 1200 display, which has 323 ppi versus the iPad mini's 162 ppi, and then it comes in at 7 inches. So it's going to be a smaller display, but it's going to be a better one to look at, and that makes for it also to be better to hold in your hand. So overall, in this hardware category, you can see that the new Nexus 7 is a powerhouse and also has a better display than the iPad mini, so it's taking this category. And now it's time for the software category. Now, we've beaten Android versus iOS to death, and the same thing applies in this same category. A lot of it's going to be personal preference when it comes to software, but I will tell you that this new Nexus 7 is running the new Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, so it's really the first device to come with it already installed out the box. Now, I will tell you, Android 4.3 is faster, it is smoother, and it runs like butter on this new Nexus 7's hardware. And now we already know that Android has better customization options, but now also in Android 4.3 it has support for Bluetooth Smart, OpenGL ES 3.0, which is going to make gaming better, and then also to multiple users support with restricted profiles, which allow you to choose a certain application, and say you got a kid that likes to play this game, it'll disable the ability to download in-game content, and also to you can restrict what photos and what other things that that person can look at in this restricted profile, which is going to be great. And moving over to the iPad mini, it's going to be shipping right now with iOS 6, even though you may see iOS 7 on mine right now. I am running the beta, but I'm not going to compare that right now because it still is in beta. But iOS 6 is going to be fast as well. It's going to be smooth. It's going to be a little bit easier to use and more comfortable for a lot more people on a tablet, I would say. But for the most part, the big advantage that iOS 6 has on the iPad mini is going to be that a lot of the applications are going to be optimized for this iPad mini. And that's one thing with the Nexus 7. I did find that even though it has this very beautiful display, probably the best display on a 7-inch tablet, a lot of the games and stuff still aren't optimized to take advantage of that display to really get you the best that you can. But again, that will definitely probably be fixed in the future. But for right now, the iPad mini is winning in that regard. But overall, when I have to look at the OS for a tablet of this size, I do prefer Android 4.3 running on the Nexus 7 right now. It just feels a lot faster, a lot smoother, and with all the little different tweaks and enhancements, it really is a joy to use. So the Nexus 7 is going to win this hardware category. Now let's going to move on to the last category, and this is going to be price. Now, if you want to get 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only models for both the iPad mini and the Nexus 7, the iPad mini is going to cost you $329, and the Nexus 7 is only going to cost you $229, so there's a $100 difference. And then if you want to move up to 32 gigabyte Wi-Fi only, the Nexus 7 improves even more because it only goes up to $269, but the iPad mini is going to cost you another $100, and now that's going to be $429. Now, the iPad mini does have an advantage over the Nexus 7 when it comes to storage option, because they do offer a 64 gigabyte version that's going to run you $529. And when it comes to the LTE versions of these tablets, the Nexus 7 is only going to have a 32 gigabyte LTE version, but that's only going to run you $349, and that's only about 20 bucks more than the 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only iPad mini model. But if you wanted the LTE version of the iPad mini, 16 gigabytes is going to cost you $459, 32 gigabytes is going to cost you $559, and then 64 gigabytes is going to cost cost you $659. Nexus 7 does have one advantage because all three of its carriers can be used with one single model, where the iPad mini you have to buy each individual model for each individual carrier. So the Nexus 7 you can be able to switch between carriers on a whim. So as far as the price point, the Nexus 7 is easily the best deal, so it's going to take this price category. Alright, so that wraps up this battle between the iPad mini and the new Nexus 7, and it's clear to see that the Nexus 7 has won this battle. Now, one category that's going to be kind of up in the air is going to be the software category. Again, a lot of that's going to be your personal preference, but when I just stand back and look at it, the Nexus 7 has the best software for this type of form factor of a tablet right now. But we'll definitely revisit this when iOS 7 comes out. But other than that, everything else was pretty slam dunk when it comes to the hardware, it comes to the display, the performance, and also too when it comes to the price point. This is going to be easily the best bang for your buck. And so if somebody wants to come and ask me which tablet to recommend, I would definitely start off with the Nexus 7 and move on from there. So this is definitely the standard for tablets right now, in my particular opinion, especially when it comes to the smaller form factor tablets. So anyway, guys, this has just been my battle between the Nexus 7 and iPad mini. Leave your comment down below what you think, which one you think won in your opinion. Leave that comment down below, and I will see you guys next week, and thanks for watching, and I will catch you later. Peace.